Hey guys, so I am very excited to film this video for you today. It is going to be another live finger and brush swatch video of the Too Faced Christmas in London. It's called a makeup collection, but it's basically a palette with both eyeshadow and blushes. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. But you may not know that my husband is actually from London originally, and we did actually spend Christmas in London in 2019. His family is still over there, and obviously we haven't been able to go back for the last couple of years, but hopefully perhaps next year the stars will align and we'll be able to go back over. So I have experienced Christmas in London, and I may insert some pictures here and there as I'm talking about the different shade names and that sort of thing. But yeah, this palette definitely kind of pulled on my heartstrings a little bit. So I am a makeup collector, and I just really love kind of themes in makeup in general. So I'm going to swatch this as I normally do, but I think I have convinced my husband to pop on at the end to chat a little bit about the shade names. Had to kind of twist his arm a little bit, but hopefully he'll be a good sport and I don't know, give his 2 cents. I mean, he really doesn't care about makeup, but so anyway, so this is the outer packaging. So it has the British flag up here, has a little chimney sweep, of course Santa and his reindeer. This is, you would call it Big Ben, but I think the technical term is the Elizabeth Tower, and then Big Ben is the bell. So yeah, so we have that, then we just have some kind of general like party scenes going on in here. I think that's supposed to be the London Eye in the background. That's that big Ferris wheel type thing. And I think that's basically it for the outer packaging. So I did purchase this from Ulta. It retails for $45, which honestly I think is a little high. So if you can get this on a discount, obviously that's the best way to go. The Too Faced is kind of notorious for putting a lesser quality of product in these kind of limited edition holiday palettes. Generally, I think the conventional wisdom is that their kind of tin packaging, this is their gingerbread one from a few years ago, is kind of a superior formula, but I'm willing to be kind of proven wrong on that point. So I definitely purchased this for the theme, more so than like the color story or anything like that. But I still think it's fun to swatch and see how they perform. So if you were thinking of picking up this palette for either reason, either the shadows themselves or just kind of the cuteness factor, hopefully this video will help inform that purchasing decision. So they say it's a $165 value, and I think in addition to Ulta Beauty, the only place you can purchase this is on the Too Faced website. And at one point, Too Faced was offering, I think, 20% off if you signed up for emails or something to that effect. So if you're able to get 20% off, that would bring it down to $36, which I think is a much better price point, obviously. So you can either try that on the Too Faced website, or currently on the Ulta website, you can get the diamond highlighter with a $25 Too Faced purchase. And it says that is valid through November 27th or while quantities last. So I did review this a while ago now, and I wasn't a huge fan. I actually decluttered the one that I bought, but then this obviously came back into my life as a gift with purchase, so I have it once again. It does have a very cute kind of presentation to it. I just had a little bit of trouble with the application. It just was like flaking up on me in a really weird way. And if you can see, it has that kind of like opalescent, almost bluish kind of reflect. I think this is supposed to have like different like colors kind of mixed in. But I think generally you're getting kind of a blue reflect, which I think was kind of more popular a few years ago. It's not as popular these days, but anyway, if you did want to try this highlighter, or if getting a highlighter would make this more attractive, you could, you know, combine those if you were giving it to someone. maybe something worthwhile to consider for going that 20% off. So this is the outer unicarton, and there's not a whole lot. This has a little bit of a texture to it, which is nice. Has some gold foiling. And it says on the bottom here, avoid getting into eyes. Okay, so that's really all it says on the bottom there. That's of interest. And then this is the back. So one thing it says here is it smells like English toffee. So I will definitely take a sniff and see if I can detect any kind of scent to it. So you can get a general idea of the shadows, and then you get 4 blushes plus a travel size Better Than Sex mascara. That to me is just kind of, I mean, it's nice, I guess, if they put it in there, but that wouldn't be like a huge like selling factor for me. But again, if you were buying this for someone else as a gift, then that could kind of make it seem more like a gift. So on the bottom here, I think that's supposed to be Jared Blandino, who was one of the founders of Too Faced, I believe. It says, may the miracle of Christmas fill your hearts with joy and your homes with love. XOXO, I think that's his signature, Jared Blandino, and then I think that's his dog. I want to say it's named Cupcake, but I can't really remember. Give you a better look at that. And while we're zoomed in here, it does contain carmine, so it will not be a vegan formula. I don't see talc kind of leaping out at me, but that's not to say that it's not in here. So it's a little difficult to follow the breakdown of the size of the products, but the total net weight for the entire palette is 20.24 grams. And it says it's bulk made in the USA and assembled in the Dominican Republic, which is interesting because we hear a lot about palettes being made in the PRC these days. So for a kind of holiday release, it's interesting that it's still made in the USA. It does only have a 6-month shelf life. I wonder if that's also taking into account the mascara. Okay, so let's get into the actual packaging here. So on the top here, you'll see they have the little Too Faced Better Than Sex mascara. I'll probably throw that into a giveaway. So I'll just put that off to the side. If you are a makeup lover and you haven't tried Better Than Sex mascara by now, then there you go. Okay, so that is the palette itself, and I'll just give you a little bit of comparison side by side with the outer packaging. The design is very similar. This is a little bit more lavender, whereas this one has some pink. This one has the actual name of the palette. And this one has these kind of trees and baubles, as the British would say, ornaments in them. This one actually has a black cab or taxi. And I think everything else is pretty much the same here. Okay. So that is the palette. It does have a little bit of a raised effect, which is nice. And again, it does have some gold foilings. So it's nice that this is pretty protected in the outer packaging. I don't know if you can see, mine has a slight imperfection in the box as it was shipped to me. Gold on the top there. And on the back it says Too Faced Christmas in London inside of a heart. So I'm guessing, looking again at the measurements here, I think each eyeshadow might be 0.5 grams, and then you get 10 grams in total. And the 4 blushes, it looks like they're each 2.56 grams, and the total net weight is 10.24 grams. Okay, so let's take a look. So it doesn't have a mirror, just has kind of a recreation of that scene. This one is just pretty flat, but it does again have that gold foil and the little kind of framing around the outside. And before I forget to mention it, Too Faced I think has done some kind of like travel themed holiday collections before, which is fun. And I think like they often do different limited edition or holiday kind of release palettes will be at different retailers. So I think Sephora has a different set. I think HSN might have a different set. So if you are kind of interested in the theme in general, but maybe not in London, I think they have ones for New York, LA, Rome, oh, and the Alps, I believe as well. Okay, so it has a plastic protector. And then those are the shades. So I think on the website, it just said how many mattes and shimmers there were. So it says there are 11 creamy mattes and 9 metallics. But for the blushes, it does describe the colors. It says there is I'm guessing just going down the row here, satin light gold peach, matte true pink, matte peach, and satin deep rose. So you have a variety of finishes there, which is nice. So we'll swatch those towards the end here. Let me go ahead and smell this. I mean, I can buy English toffee, I guess. I think it's a very kind of synthetic sweet smell, which I think is kind of what you would expect, but if that, you know, thrills you or whatever, I think it's nice that they chose a scent that is in theory tied to the theme as opposed to just like vanilla or chocolate or something like that. If you missed it, I did also film a similar type of video of the Too Faced Forbidden Fruitcake palette, which is supposed to smell like fruitcake. Again, I mean, maybe slightly different in kind of how it smells, but still just kind of a synthetic sweet smell, at least to my nose. But yeah, this is another cute little Too Faced holiday release that is British themed, if that kind of floats your boat. So I'll link that for you if you haven't seen it. Okay, so before I get into the actual swatches, I just wanted to talk a little bit about kind of my tools and techniques. So I always swatch eyeshadow over a primed arm, and I have been using the Lorac Behind the Scenes Eye Primer because I just seem to have accumulated a fair amount of it, and it's easy to dispense onto a large surface area. So in between each kind of row of swatches, I will remove the swatches, reapply the primer, and allow that to kind of set. So that is the first thing. For my brushes, for the matte shades, I use the Rephr No. 2 brush, which is a dupe of the MAC 239. Rephr is predominantly natural hair. This, I think, is an old 239 from MAC, so it is still natural hair, and it was made in Japan. I think MAC is now entirely synthetic. So if you're looking for a natural hair dupe of what is now the MAC 239, you can look at Rephr. And Rephr does make very kind of affordable but high quality brushes. They are made in Japan. So I do have affiliate links for Rephr, but I'm not kind of in any other way affiliated with them. But they are currently having a 50% off site-wide sale for Black Friday. So if you've been curious about Rephr, as I've mentioned them in my videos, make sure to check that out. So that is for matte shades. And in between swatches, I will remove as much shadow as I can using this little Sigma sample of the brush cleaning glove, which I think was designed to be used to wash your brushes, but they've now released something fairly similar called the Sigma Switch, which is like a silicone matte with different textures to remove shades in between shadows. So I'll be using that. I used to use the Veramona color switch, but I think that Sigma product, or any similar type product, I think is a little bit gentler than the Veramona. For the shimmers, I will be using the Rephr No. 21 brush, which I believe is a mix of natural and synthetic bristles. And this was kind of modeled after the MAC 242. Again, the one I have is older. This one was made in Japan. This one may also have natural bristles in it, but I think the one MAC currently sells is synthetic. And of course, I will give Mel Thompson a shout out for asking Rephr to create this brush. And then I think for the blushes, this is kind of new territory for me. I think I will use the Rephr No. 4 brush, which is that kind of angled blush brush. I think that'll help me get a fairly decent kind of color pickup and payoff. And this one looks remarkably similar to the MAC 168 brush. Again, this one was made in Japan, and I think this was natural hair. So again, this isn't sponsored by Rephr. I just, you know, have purchased a lot of their brushes over the years. And if you're not familiar with how Rephr got their start, I think they might have launched through a Kickstarter originally. So they had a very kind of internet-driven, like collaborative type development process with their customers. So they have something called the concept store, which outside of like Black Friday and that kind of thing, they will offer certain brushes at like a 40% discount, that kind of thing, in exchange for people promising to fill out a feedback form. So I'm not sure how their like original brushes kind of took off or whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if their customers asked for brushes very similar to MAC brushes, because MAC for a long time was the industry leader, I think. So I think a lot of people were just familiar with MAC's kind of brushes and their shapes and everything. And I'm not sure which came first, MAC switching to synthetic or Rephr kind of launching. But anyway, so that is a brief history on Rephr. And I do like to do dry and wet brush swatches for the shimmers. So I will be using the Tarte Maracuja Miracle Mist setting spray to wet my brush for the shimmers. This has a very nice kind of aerosolized dispenser. So I can get my brushes damp but not soaking. Okay, so let's take another look at these. I don't know if you saw before, but there are some pans in here that are just a little bit wonky. So if that would bother you, just to let you know that some of them just don't seem to be perfectly kind of set in there. So I'll take a spatula, which hopefully is not a horrible idea. This one called Boxing Day just seems a little... I imagine these are glued in, so I'm not sure how much you'll be able to actually adjust them. So I think I'm going to do columns rather than rows. Hopefully that doesn't kind of come back to bite me. Having a larger palette does make it a little bit more difficult to get everything in frame here. So as I go through this, I will try to share any wisdom I have about what the different shades mean. I did have to ask my husband about this first one though, and that is Chrimbo Vibes. So this looks like it's a matte cream. Apparently Chrimbo is a nickname or whatever, slang for Christmas. Which was not something I'd heard before, and he said that it's not something that he is, you know, referred to Christmas as or whatever. So, so that is the finger and dry brush of Chrimbo Vibes. Actually has more kind of pigment than I was expecting. And at the end here, I will give you a nice zoomed in look at what the pans look like after swatching. All right, so the next one is You Can't Hyde, and Hyde is spelled H-Y-D-E. So I think that's supposed to be Hyde Park. And I don't know if it's supposed to kind of invoke like Santa Claus is coming to town. I don't think the lyrics of that song actually say anything about hiding, but... So that one looks pretty good there. All right, the next one is Too Faced at Carnaby. So Carnaby is a street or road in London that I believe is closed off to vehicle traffic. And they always have really, it's like a shopping little street, that kind of thing. And they always have a lot of fun like decorations and lights. Okay, so the dry brush is not picking up a ton. So as I've said before in previous videos, some people, like I'm doing now, will wet their brush and then go into the shadow. I think that might help a little bit with pickup if you have a shadow that is being difficult, but you do kind of run the risk of kind of harming the integrity of the shadow, especially if it's not meant to be used wet. So I think the finger definitely kind of gave the best opacity there. Zoom in for this one. I think that will kind of give you like a topper effect. So pretty kind of light pink there. The next one is Abbey Snowed, and I believe this is supposed to be like Abbey Road. That one's just a little bit darker than my skin tone, so it's a little hard to see. And then finally we have Christmas in the Cotswold, which is not in London. So I've never been to the Cotswolds, but from what I understand, it's like a really kind of charming little area. That one applied very well. Like lots of kind of quaint English cottages. I'll have to look up to see where the holiday was supposed to be set, but it's definitely that kind of vibe. Yeah, the Cotswolds is an area in South Central, West Midlands, and Southwest England. So anyway, so that is the first row. Try to get them all in frame here. So we have Chrimbo Vibes finger brush. We have You Can't Hyde finger brush. We have Too Faced at Carnaby finger dry brush, wet brush. Abbey Snowed finger brush. And finally, Christmas in the Cotswold, and that is finger and brush. Okay, so I just blew off a little bit because there was some of Chrimbo Vibes getting into Christmas Queen, and I didn't want to kind of change the color of the shade. Okay, so going into Christmas Queen, obviously the UK is a monarchy, and I believe the Queen gives a Christmas kind of address or message. So I don't know if that is supposed to refer to her message or just kind of the monarchy in general. So that is Christmas Queen. Next up we have Tower of Lovin, which I believe is supposed to be Tower of London. It's like a light pink, peachy kind of color. It's swatching a bit strangely on my arm there. I think I might start using this clean brush just so I don't get kind of dark shadow into some of these lighter ones. So I have been to the Tower of London, and from what I recall from documentaries and that kind of thing, I think it was like an old like Norman castle type thing. And now, of course, I think it's where they store the crown jewels. Next up we have Picadilly Thrilly. So Piccadilly Circus is a bit like Times Square, but it's smaller. It's a nice kind of rose shade. Okay, so next up we have Baking in the Tent, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be the Great British Bake Off, or I believe they call it the Great British Baking Show in the US, which does happen to be one of my favorite shows. I don't know if they've ever had it in London itself. I think it's usually kind of on some like historic estate. And of course they set up a tent. So I don't know if it was necessary to have both of those shades. That one is a little bit darker, a little bit warmer maybe, but I guess with 20 eyeshadows it's not terrible to have that kind of overlap. And then last one in this column is London Actually, which I think is supposed to be a reference to the movie Love Actually. So that one is, I think, a little bit warmer swatched than it appears in the pan. All right, so going in with my dry brush. And as you'll see, generally a finger will kind of pick up shimmers better than a brush will. But as I've said before, if you don't want to use your finger, either you have nails or you just don't want to, those little foam applicators that you can buy, kind of the same as the ones that come in an eyeshadow palette sometimes, are I think the best imitation of a finger. Okay, so let's zoom in. So that is that one metallic in this row. So we have Christmas Queen finger brush, Tower of Lovin finger brush, Picadilly Thrilly finger brush, Baking in the Tent finger brush, and London Actually. So we have finger, dry brush, and wet brush. So I think I was able to get a slightly better payoff of the brush swatches than Too Faced at Carnaby. So that's one more look at that row. Okay, so let's go into this first one here, which is called Figgy Pudding. Just like a metallic kind of lavender type shade. Going in with the dry brush. Alright, and just giving you another kind of close-up look. I think I was able to build all of those up to be fairly comparable. And while we are on this shade, I thought I would just quickly show you for the sake of comparison, this gingerbread palette that I showed you earlier. There is a shade called Figgy Pudding, but I'll just do a little comparison. I'm pretty sure the gingerbread one is matte. If you did have both of those, that would probably be a pretty eye look together. Very complimentary, but nowhere near the same shade. I don't think most people would probably expect it to be, but just in case. All right, so next up we have Saville Bow. Oh, and Figgy Pudding, I'm sure. Like, we wish you a Merry Christmas. You've probably heard of Figgy Pudding before. I think it is like a traditional kind of steamed pudding type dessert. I'll have to ask my husband if he has any kind of familiarity with Figgy Pudding. But anyway, that is the finger. Pretty lavender shade there. Oh, and Saville Bow, I think refers to Saville Row, which is kind of the famous location where there's a lot of kind of high-end tailors for those bespoke suits, that kind of thing. Okay, so going on to Boxing Day. And it's very pretty. So Boxing Day, as you may know, is the day after Christmas. And I think like it is over here too. I guess there's a lot of like sales, that kind of thing. But it's almost kind of like Christmas Part 2. Like it's kind of, you know, taking out any leftovers from the actual Christmas feast, and like, you know, the family will come around again to partake. So it's kind of like the, I don't know, less formal, more casual Christmas. You know, a lot of people are in sweats, not wearing makeup, that kind of thing. But still having some delicious food. So I would say so far, metallics in this row are performing pretty decently well. I think Too Faced at Carnaby was kind of the least impressive, but I don't know if that's just because it's not meant to be kind of a more opaque shade. It's meant to be more of a topper. So that is Boxing Day. The next one is Press for Champagne, and I think this is a matte, almost white really, like a very light pink. And there is a restaurant, which I'll have to look up the name of. It actually looks like there's a bit of a kind of a duochrome to that. Interesting. Where they have little kind of doorbell looking devices at the table, and if you press it, they will indeed bring out champagne. Wouldn't we all love to have that at our disposal? Okay, so going in with a refer number 2 brush. I think it's interesting that they kind of put that duochrome type effect into a matte shade. Hopefully that's kind of coming across. That might be really pretty on the brow bone. It's kind of like a slightly kind of reflective and interesting shade without being like super sparkly. And the last one here is called Last Christmas. And I believe that is after the Wham song. Looks like I have a little bit of Renegade shimmer there. Okay, so we have Last Christmas, that is finger, dry brush, wet brush. We have Press for Champagne, that is finger and brush. Boxing Day, that is finger, dry brush, wet brush. Saville Bow, that is finger and brush. And then we have Figgy Pudding, which is finger, dry brush, and wet brush. I am filming.
Have you just started?
No. Have you ever had figgy pudding?
No. No, I haven't.
Do you know what it is?
No.
Okay.
That's Figgy Pudding.
Yeah.
What
I think it's just like a pudding that has like fruit and maybe it's just Christmas pudding.
That's disgusting.
Wikipedia says it's a vague term used for a class of traditional Christmas dishes, usually forming sweet and savory cakes containing a sour, sweet, creamy layer of honey, fruits, and nuts. In later times, rum or other distilled alcohol became often added to enrich the fruitfulness of the flavor. So bring us some figgy pudding, so bring us some figgy pudding, so bring us some figgy pudding, and bring it right now. We won't go until we get some, we won't go until we get some, we won't go until we get some. Okay, so final column here, we have Tea at the Ritz, which is kind of a, I don't know, cool toned grayish brown. I don't know if this was supposed to look like tea. I feel like these finger swatches of a matte don't always do it justice because, like I said, I do try to let the primer kind of set, but it's not always the case. Okay, so I think if I were designing this shade, I probably would have made it like a gold glittery type shade, but we can go with this. So I haven't had tea at the Ritz. It's something I would like to do, especially if we go to London for Christmas next year. We did have tea at the Wolseley, which is a nice restaurant right next to the Ritz. So I'll insert some pictures of that. It was very nice, very beautiful building. So if you want something that is maybe less expensive than the Ritz, or you're just not able to get a reservation, then I recommend the Wolseley. So the next one here is Butter My Biscuits. So I'm sure you all know that for the British, a biscuit is kind of like a hard cookie, like shortbread, that kind of thing. I think the phrase butter my biscuits is maybe more of an American phrase. I could be wrong on that, but I think when you're saying butter my biscuits, you're referring to like the American style baked good that would be probably called a scone or scone in the UK. So anyway, it's a pretty kind of neutral to cool toned gold. Okay, so next up we have Mulled Wine, which I always associate with Germany because I spent time there as a kid, and in Germany it's called Glühwein, but I think a lot of different cultures have mulled wine. If you have a Trader Joe's near you, you may see it pop up this time of year if they sell wine. Generally what I see is the German kind of import. All right, so I just grabbed it for reference. So this is apparently the Hark and Holly Glühwein. It's a liter, 9% alcohol by volume. You just heat it up. You don't want to heat it at too high a temperature because it'll burn off all the alcohol unless that's what you want. So it says infused with cinnamon, vanilla, nutmeg, clove, and orange peel. Sure to add some warmth, coziness, and cheer to your fall and winter festivities. And yeah, this is a product of Germany. But that's okay. All right, so dry brush. One thing that did surprise me about the UK, so I've been there other times of the year, not just Christmas, and I believe they have like gingerbread men as a biscuit kind of year round for the most part. They also seem to have like Cadbury Easter eggs, which I guess are not really Cadbury Easter eggs then, they're just like the Cadbury cream egg. I think Cadbury was originally a British company. They might now be under an umbrella of some like kind of international conglomerate, whatever. I think it's one of those things too where like the Cadbury chocolate that you buy in the US is not quite the same as the Cadbury chocolate in the UK. I think it has something to do with like the, getting some flex there, the amount of like cocoa solids it has to have to be considered chocolate in the US, or just, I don't know, the amount of milk or that kind of thing. It's always interesting when you have those kind of variations in products around the world, like a Kinder Egg, which is a German candy, I guess, where it used to be, I think, sold in the US, where you had that like outer shell of chocolate and then you had a toy inside. But I think there's some US rule where you can't have non-edible items inside of edible items. Because, I don't know, they're worried that people will just eat the whole thing or choke, or I don't know. So anyway, I've been swatching Father Christmas, which is often what people in the UK call Santa Claus. I think they often say Happy Christmas too, as opposed to Merry Christmas, which I think is kind of interesting. I think this one is one of the more kind of flakier metallic type shades. And this one, at the very end here, is called Spotted Dick, and that looks like a matte, mostly matte, but there might be some like micro glitter in it. I'll give you guys a zoom in of this one as well. Ooh. I picked up a lot. So you're not getting a lot of that kind of micro glitter with the brush. You can still see some like specks in there though. Okay, so that is Spotted Dick. That is the brush and the finger. This one is Father Christmas, so that is wet brush, dry brush, and finger. There's like a slight kind of pink shift in there, I think, or just pink glitter maybe. This one is Mulled Wine, so wet brush, dry brush, and finger. And then we have Butter My Biscuits, and that is wet brush, dry brush, and finger. And finally, we have Tea at the Ritz. So that is the brush and that is the finger. So I'm going to zoom in on these shadows before I swatch the blushes, because I think I want to kind of blow off some of this kick up. So just kind of do it in sections, because I think that'll give you the best look at it. Again, I did kind of blow off this little area after I swatched it, so Chrimbo did kind of kick up some shadow just for the sake of demonstrating there. So that is the first two rows. Third and fourth row, and the last row. So not terrible. This one is kind of a little chunky, but it's not anything I can't live with. Okay, so let's swatch the blush. So I think I'll do this on a bare arm. See how that goes for the first go round anyway. So the People's Princess, I guess I can do finger swatches too, refers to Princess Diana. And that is supposed to be a satin light gold peach. This one, Pretty in Punk, is a matte true pink. And then this one, Carnaby Sweet, which again, I think is supposed to refer to Carnaby Street. They probably could have branched out a little bit instead of referring to the same general location twice, but anyway. And the last one is Spice Girl, so Spice Girls, which is a nice, I guess, kind of spice shade of a blush there. That is a Satin Deep Rose. So Satin Deep Rose, Matte Peach, Matte True Pink, and Satin Light Gold Peach. It's pretty pigmented. Again, this is not primed. I think that's a nice range of shades, and they actually kind of swatched pretty well for finger swatches. So I think those will probably work on a good number of skin tones. Ooh. I kicked up a fair bit. I think even the mattes have maybe a tiny bit of sheen to them, which I like because I think generally it's just more flattering on the skin and they can kind of blend out better. Got Spice Girl. So I think you can see some of the product coming off, but I think certainly if you have like a medium skin tone, I think that'll be really pretty. I don't have a lot of experience applying blush to like deep skin tones, so I can't say for sure like how that might look. I think on me, I will have to be kind of more light-handed, but I think I could still probably wear that. This first one is kind of more, I don't know, more of a sheen, more shimmery. All right, so that is one last look at the blush shades. Okay, so again, this is Spice Girl. That is Carnaby Sweet. That is Pretty and Punk. And that is the People's Princess. And I don't know if you can see kind of some of the fallout generally. You guys have a close-up look at the blushes. Not too bad. All right, I'm ready for you. Would you ever say butter my biscuits in the UK?
No.
Have you ever had spotted dick?
Yeah, it's cake. It's pudding.
Yeah. Do you like it?
Oh, really?
Not really.
No. Don't like it.
Do people think it's funny in the UK?
Yeah, if it's 5.
I don't know. How would you describe the Cotswolds?
It's a nice place to hike, isn't it? Sort of like
Nature.
rich people that
Oh, really?
yeah, like incredibly posh people that own their weekend retreats.
Oh, yeah. You grew up saying Father Christmas?
Yeah, still do.
Not Santa Claus?
No, it's Father Christmas.
Okay. That's probably good.
More?
More? You want to talk about Chrimbo again?
Yeah, I think only Welsh people talk about Chrimbo.
Oh, yeah?
I haven't anyone from London that comes. I ever said Chrimbo. All my Welsh mates say Chrimbo.
Do they?
Chrimbo. We should just say Christmas. What other ones you got?
How would you describe Piccadilly Circus?
Busy.
Busy? How would you compare it to Times Square?
Well, Times Square's a lot bigger than it.
Yeah. And the Queen gives a Christmas message on Christmas. She gives a Christmas address.
She gives out her Christmas address.
Yeah.
For our Arnes Horribles.
How would you describe Boxing Day?
Oh, you don't have Boxing Day over here, do you?
Well, I mean, technically we do.
Yeah, but it's not called Boxing Day. It's great. You just eat all leftovers.
Mm-hmm.
Open more presents.
More presents?
Yeah, sometimes you get more presents. Most
I thought that
don't.
was for, like, your mailman and stuff.
No, I don't know. I got more presents.
Oh, did you?
Don't put that.
Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed hearing from the source, as it were. So I hope you found this helpful and entertaining, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do. I like to film lots of videos like this, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.